ow, just ow.
Okay, let's pay attention. I want to talk about making bead molding for cabinets and furniture. There's two ways I've seen people do it. The way I do it is I size my material all the way around first. Smooth 4 size, it's known as S4S. So by doing that, I'm making all my pieces identical. And the issue, if you don't do that, I've seen people run a router on the piece upright like this, make the bead, which is fine, but then what happens, it leaves a saw kerf on the part that's visible after you rip it. So when you bring it over to the saw...
Not to mention, it's not, it's risky to route up on the edge like that because the router might tip, right,
Yeah.
Chief?
So now, what I have to do to rip this piece off is adjust my table saw, rip it through, then when I take it off, I have a saw kerf down the whole visible edge that has to be sanded or planed off. And the problem is you can't plane it because now you already have your profile. And the other issue is, after this piece comes off, you have to joint this edge, then make your bead on it again, and then adjust your fence and rip it again. And the chances of getting your fence adjusted where the next rip is identical to this one is almost impossible. You're either gonna get some kind of ridge or you're gonna cut into it a little bit, and then you're dealing with saw kerfs on 2 sides that you have to deal with on the jointer again.
Or sand it and have
Or sand it.
an inconsistent edge.
So by sizing it first, you have all consistent pieces, and what we like to do is use quarter sawn material. So the quarter sawn edge is actually the profile. And especially with fur, it's a very fine grain, so it really makes a nice bead.
So this was one board, I guess 4 or 5 inches wide when you started out, and very tight, straight vertical grain.
Yeah, and whenever I make face frames, I try to use the same board to make the whole face frame. Mm-hmm. So the color and the grain is consistent in
We've
the
got
face
an
frame.
example over here we can look at. This is the sink base we're working on for the laundry area.
Yeah, this grain is a little bit heavier.
Uh-huh.
It's still quarter sawn material, but again, we have the quarter sawn facing out, and using the finer grain for the bead, mm-hmm. it stands out a little better, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's easier to mill because it cuts nice with the bit without tearing out. This is actually my favorite grain. It's kind of like in between heavy and light, mm-hmm. because that's what the fur stands for in my eyes.
Right, and the fir, unlike the pine, the fir has a bit of a rose hue to it. It's very easy to see the difference if you know your woods, and you do.
And you can see the difference in the flat grain by looking at this edge right here.
Right.
You wouldn't want that on the bead. It would kind of look gnarly, you know.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, there's a lot of openings here. You've got 10 pieces, almost 4 feet long. You wouldn't think you'd need 40 feet of, 20 feet of, let's see, we've got, I can do this, 10 pieces, 40 feet. You wouldn't think there would be that much bead on one single cabinet, but there you have it.
So now I have the router set up. And there's some important points to consider here.
All right.
You must use feather boards when making small moldings like this because you got to hold it against the fence, you got to hold it down. The smaller pieces of material tend to want to wander or spring away from the blade
or vibrate
if you don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And how I like to run it, I go into one piece and I immediately follow it in and push it through with another piece, and what that does, it almost eliminates any snipe that you'll get on the end if you have, if you're tight on your material length.
In effect, tailgating.
Yeah, so
all right.
Let me show you this, how I make it.
All right.
out, I mean, there's very minimal snipe, a little bit on the bead that can easily be sanded. If you don't have the feather boards in the right position, it really wants a kick at the end, and it'll ruin about 1.5 inches of the molding. And there was one other thing I wanted to say about the vacuum. These fences, these aftermarket fences, some of them have the vacuum ports at the ends of the fence, which don't work at all because we've tried it. The vacuum and suction point needs to be right behind the bit, because you can see we don't have any sawdust in the work area here.
Well, you've commented that, a lot of people, hobby woodworkers and so forth might not have a router table. This is one that we actually built. And you commented this morning that you can have a very effective router table just with a good flat piece of ply, mounting your router to the bottom of it, and really that's all you need. You could make very, very good looking molding with just that simple setup.
You don't need a 2-piece fence with all these adjustments and slides and all of that. I prefer a single fence. And
you're not even using a lift in this instance.
No.
Come full circle on that as well.
We've tried 3 different lifts and they were all garbage.
Including, some of the very best that are designed to drop right into the high-end saws and so forth. Yeah. And just not, you feel that this gives you a little bit better control for what you want. Very nice.
So that's how we make our bead. It's a consistent and accurate way to make it, and as soon as it comes out of the machine, it's ready to install.
All right. Well, I'll say it again. Nice, Danny.